Hello, welcome. It is June the 6th. And, it behooves us to just take a moment to honor and remember this anniversary day, 80th anniversary of D-Day, because, speaking of the Jewish people, the state of Israel, without D-Day, that was a pivotal battle in winning the Second World War and overcoming Nazi regime. And so it's important, I think, that we just take a moment, and I want to honor the fact that there was the American, Canadian, the British, and the French were the four battle, the four brigades battle people that went into D-Day. Obviously, there was a lot of loss that day, but let's take just a moment here to have a look at this, because there's commemorations going on today, there last night and today. 80 years today.
I always thought that when the war was over and we had peace, he would come back to us. But of course, he never did.
He was one of the daughters of the soldiers who fell at D-Day. So last night they had a candle ceremony. Okay.
As over 4,000 headstones were individually lit up, honouring those that lost their lives here. So was the sky above Portsmouth, where their journey began exactly 80 years ago.
When we were passing the White Cliffs of Dover, the sergeant said as we passed, he said, "Take a good look, boys." He said, "Many of you will never see that again."
Well, all I wanted to mention there is for us to remember. So, Father, thank you for all those family members, and there's still survivors. They are from ages of 96 till 107 that are there, that were flown in to Normandy for today's commemoration of the 80th anniversary of D-Day. So amazing. My daughter Glory was just at Pearl Harbor on yesterday. She was at Pearl Harbor, and that's in, of course, Honolulu and Oahu, Hawaii. And she said that they were telling her as she was looking at the USS Arizona, which is still there, buried in the water. You can go out in a boat and see it. But she said that there was numerous survivors of the SS Arizona that they were, if they wanted to, when they passed away, they could be cremated, put into some sort of urn that would be put down into the USS Arizona to be with the ones that that fell that day. And the last survivor of the USS Arizona, this is Pearl Harbor, just died on April 1st. So April 1st is past April 1st, the very last survivor of that Pearl Harbor bombing. Anyways, a little bit of nostalgia there, but we want to honor this 80th anniversary of D-Day. So now we are in modern day war, modern day battle, and Rachely will tell us a bit more, but I do want to mention, I'm on this text thread, not sure even how I got on it, but with different battle, it's the Israel breaking news conglomeration of posts, but I just want to highlight one that sadly a tracker fell in battle yesterday, and he was a Bedouin. And I just remember being with Aryeh Bar David, who is amazing in Israel, and he told us this. He said the best trackers ever, the ones who could, just look at every little twig and every little footprint in sand and track, whoever, people or even animals, is the Bedouin people. So this warrant officer, Zid Mezereb, he fell in battle, sadly. He was a 34-year-old tracker from the Bedouin town of Cesar, and he was very, very useful to the IDF as a tracker. Incredible. And people like him would help to identify, where certain Hamas operatives were. And just to also mention, incredible how many times we are seeing Hamas affiliated with UNRWA. So another UNRWA building was bombed by the IDF just yesterday, and estimated between 20 to 30 Hamas Islamic Jihad terrorists were gathered at the UN school in central Gaza, and Israel struck them overnight. But all right, well, Rachely, you are amazing. I love Rachely. She is part of the National Leadership Center staff. She comes from Brazil. She has a really great story of how, as a Jewish girl in Brazil, her mother passed away when she was young, and just how she ended up in Israel. It's really amazing. Maybe you could just give a comment on that first, Rachely, because that's just a comment about how you, as a Jewish girl, came to Israel from Brazil, and then share with us what you have. Don't worry about the time. I took a few minutes this morning too. So go ahead, Rachely.
Well, thank you, Patricia. Thank you all for being in this call. And I want to acknowledge a dear friend of mine who has been such a great supporter in prayer, is Pastor Maria do Carmo from Brazil. She's in the call with us today.
Wonderful. Mhm.
So, well, I came to Israel when I was 16 years old, and I came alone without my family. I cannot say it was easy, but at the same time, it was not too hard. Being a 16-year-old, probably it's easier to adapt when you are a little bit older as a new immigrant. What I had when I came was a lot of rebellion. I was not a believer then. I was very rebellious. But probably the one thing that helped me the most was determination, that I would stay here no matter what, and I would succeed no matter what. And I did. And praise God for that. Praise God for using bad situations and turning them into good. So here I am.
Wow, amazing, amazing. And now you're helping with the National Leadership Center, which is this beacon of hope. I'll put it in the chat again. You work with Aran, but tell us first of all, from your vantage point, how has it been to go through the war? Like, do you feel you love the Lord, which obviously helps you tremendously, but do you feel that sense of trauma, of tension, and then any updates you have for us?
Well, first, from my personal point of view as a mother, it is scary. At the same time, you cannot afford, parents, we cannot afford to be scared. We have to protect our children, even from emotions, or to help them deal with the trauma, even if we are not directly affected by the war or the sirens or in the areas affected. But in any case, all Israel is affected by that in some ways. It's a neighbor or a friend or the father of a friend in school. For example, my son, many parents, many fathers of his friends are in reserve service, either in the north or in the south. So they have, like, once a month, the principal holds coffee and cakes for the mothers who stayed behind, just to have them speak out and just to relax. That's in that school. And what we have been doing in the National Leadership Center is a little bit, not a little bit, far beyond that. Is going to the people affected. And there are many. Today I heard about a 3-year-old child who lives in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not affected at all, right? And the child simply cannot sleep at night. since the beginning of the war. Why? Because it's in the air. The atmosphere it is affecting everybody. And that's why we are, again, going to the families, going to meet them even outside the National Leadership Center, and then bringing them to activities at the National Leadership Center in Ariel. Because we see that when we speak to them about God, when we speak to them about King David and Abraham, who went from another land to a promised land that he didn't know where it was. He just walked, right? But it helps them to connect, and it helps us actually to bring them the Bible to life and to bring some healing and some hours of relief, of stress relief, either in their boarding schools or high schools or in the hotels where they are staying or youth center. It doesn't matter where. The most important is what we bring. That's a message of hope.
Absolutely incredible. You know, Rachely, if you don't mind putting in the chat somehow, if people could get your book. I liked your book. It's a children's story about this little girl, Jewish girl growing up in Brazil. So obviously there's parallels to your life, but I also read it to my grandkids. I'd like just people be able to access that if you could put that in the chat. So how old is your son? Can you remind me?
12.
12. So as you're saying, can you imagine as a parent, how children pick up on stress, how they pick up on, even if you're not saying the words, the atmosphere of stress, of trauma. So exactly what you're saying for your own son, but then also this is what the National Leadership Center is also targeting right now, is children, actually widows too. Could you mention about the widows? What is it that you're doing with the widows, the women that are, left alone now?
Well, we actually have activities for both widows and orphans or widowed parents, because there were some women that actually fell in the war, that died. There were women fighting as a policewomen or in the army. And we went, I think it was this week, Iran and our trainers went to meet them, a group of widowed parents and their children. And it was very touching. It was amazing to see that they could speak for a few hours just to, breathe and to just have fun and forget their sorrow for a few hours. And in this time that they could forget, I mean, you can obviously you can't forget your sorrow. You can't forget that you lost someone, but you can disconnect from sorrow for a little bit. And as an orphan child, I can definitely say that it is important to disconnect from that sorrow for a while, so you can, connect to those around you, especially widowed parents, so they can actually see their children and not see only their sorrow. So this is what happened this week through the activity that we were present in. I think it was in a city near Tel Aviv. And we are excited because they are coming to the National Leadership Center next week. And they are excited already. They are with great anticipation for this activity.
Wow, it's amazing. I actually want to show more. If I could, I'll just try to get a video of the National Leadership Center, because it's like fun activities like high ropes courses and different like trust fall, stuff like that, where these younger people and IDF soldiers, right, go through the National Leadership Center, learning leadership from the Bible, like learning leadership from heroes like King David or
Abraham.
And for a largely secular Israel, this is actually very revolutionary. It's like, go back to the Bible, go back to the, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So what an incredible way that the Lord has ordained for for people to learn, leadership. Could you just tell us a little bit now what's going on? Because I haven't seen the latest regarding fires in the north, or do you smell that? Are you subject to that? Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know that from Ari Sasher, that was a pretty imminent threat to the nation. Or what are you hearing now?
Well, we do know that some of the fire was put off, but it's a constant threat. What is also important is to know that the army is ready to move on whenever needed. As our General Chief of Staff of the Army said, also Netanyahu said that Israel is prepared for very intense action in the north. And also the IDF increased the numbers of reserve services to 350,000 people ready or actually already recruited back into the army. And it's like the maximum number possible. What happens in the north with the fires is it's so difficult to actually control it, because the missiles or rockets from Hezbollah, they may fall anywhere, just anywhere. And especially now, which is very, very, very hot. It's the summer. Some of the fields are actually dry, because during the summer we don't have any rain. Unless, God changes the weather in Israel and sends rain in the summer, which would be a miracle that I needed one, may I say. So unless that happens, it's very, very hard to control the fires, especially in the north. I know that 2 days ago, there were firefighters coming from almost all the stations, all the firefighting stations in Israel, to help quench the fire in the north. It doesn't affect us in the center of the country, but we are worried about friends, family, and actually all the people in the north.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for that. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show just a 2-minute video right from the website. Rachely, if there's a way that people can buy that book of yours, then put it in the chat. I don't know if there is or not. And
okay, I'm looking for the link now.
You look for it, and then we're going to show this video quickly. This is where she works. She's on the staff here. You'll recognize this guy from Mondays. Have a look.
Welcome to the National Leadership Center in Ariel. Every morning when I'm entered this gate, I'm feeling that God has blessed us. I'm feeling that I'm living under the smile of God. And I want to take you for a short tour inside the creation, of the beauty of the creation of God that gave us. This is a good time to say to you, thank you very much for your prayers, for your donations, and for taking care of this vision. Thank you everyone, and shalom.
is a little slice of peace in the midst of turmoil. It's in the hills of Ephraim in what's known as Judea and Samaria, otherwise known as the West Bank, which we don't want to call it the West Bank. But incredible that this place is ordained by the Lord to be a beacon of light this time. So, Rachely, you found some links. Good job. All right. That's
Yes,
where,
and if you don't mind, I have something that I actually would like to share with you
yes,
about
yes.
this week that we celebrated in Israel, the Jerusalem Day.
Yes.
57 years since some call it liberation, others call it unification of Jerusalem, since the city entrance where we heard to the old city, where we heard the Temple Mount is in our hands. That was an amazing moment. However, we question ourselves here sometimes. Is it really in our hands, the Temple Mount? Obviously, not entirely, because the Jews cannot enter, you cannot go to the Temple Mount. It's where the mosques are still standing. In Jerusalem, it's the place where the temple was, and it's now the mosques, the golden one, the other one. Anyway, we are not free to go. And united Jerusalem is still kind of a dream for us. The city of Jerusalem is like the mirror of what is happening among the Israeli people right now. There are disputes, political. Gantz is, for example, threatening to leave the government. And if that happens, so we don't know what it's going to be. Some of the hostages' families are telling him, if you leave the government, our children who are still hostages might die there in Gaza. We don't know if that's really the truth, but, we do have hope that anyway, either if this government will fall or not, if it continues or not, the only hope we have is that God is in control. And we can only continue to pray for the hostages to be free, to return quickly, and to that unit, the unity that we had before, actually at the beginning of the war, that may return. We don't want to need a war to be united as a people. So this is something that we could pray for.
Sorry, I was muted. Absolutely, Rachely, and everything is really so centered on Jerusalem. If you look at the Bible, so many times the Lord talks about Jerusalem. I'm going to go ahead and just stop the recording so we can post